Right, let's get into this now. Senior Fellow at the Menzies Research Centre, Nick Cater, joins me, and Senior Fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, John Roskam. Gents, great to have your company. As I said, Nick, I wrote about this in The Australian a couple of weeks ago. It comes into force on the 1st of July. 1,100 square metres is not much bigger than a house block. And when they say major works, the legislation says something as simple as digging a hole for a fence post changes the soil composition, and then you have to bring in these Aboriginal bodies to do site surveys. I think it is an absolute nightmare. What do you think?
It is. I mean, it's the vagueness of it, Peter. Right? So you know, they're not specific in there. They leave it. The onus is on the landowner to take appropriate action on laws that are just not clear at all. And the cost of bringing in an Aboriginal advisor to check your land, all this adds to the difficulty for farmers. It just seems to me, Peter, and the voice is part of this, you know, many of us would like to get a position where we actually have what they used to call reconciliation, where we can reach a point where we can agree, you know, on things with all Australians can agree and come back together. But they're not allowing this. Every stage there has to be a new move. In this case, the Aboriginal heritage, so-called, of the land has to be respected. In other cases, this new idea, sovereignty. It's clear that this is just an endless train of arguments that is not actually going to ever get us anywhere useful.
And John, a lot of these Aboriginal bodies that are supposed to come on your land and do these site assessments haven't even been formulated yet. They don't exist. There'll be disputes over who's on them and who's not on them. Of course, there's a significant charge with all of this, just like Welcome to Countries. And I have a story for you, my viewers, on Thursday night about that. Welcome to Countries, all of the money that goes into that. I mean, throw this in at the same time as The Voice. It's not good for those who want a yes vote out of WA, is it?
It absolutely isn't, Peter. And this is exactly why the no case, or what I call the case for the political equality of all Australians, is succeeding. And on top of what you identified, this is a massive increase in red tape. So IPA research has showed that red tape is already Australia's biggest industry. And when we need to grow food, when we need our exports to support the economy, this is going to be a big roadblock, in addition to all the issues around The Voice, as you and Nick identified.
I'm going to keep you there, John Roskam, because over the weekend you missed out by just one vote to get into the final showdown between two women. One was
Thank you for reminding me, Peter.
Werner. I know, mate, but I think it's such a salient point to be made here, because Werner ran as a state candidate last November and she lost. She was up against in the final two a 22-year-old staffer. Now, I might tell people at home, both of these women, I'm sure they'll be able in time, but they've only been in and around the party for a fraction of time, no significant contribution, probably, less than 2 years in the party, both of them. You've bled for the Liberal Party your entire life. Were you disappointed? What was the reaction on the ground?
Oh, there's a couple of things, Peter. And the first thing I want to say is that Nicole is going to be a very strong, good candidate in a difficult by-election for the Liberal Party, which I think, for the sake of Victorians, has to be won by the Liberal Party so that Victorians know that there is an end in sight to Dan Andrews. But as we talked about, Peter, I ran because I think the Liberal Party can win this by-election and can win the next election by being different from the Labor Party. And I talked about how the Liberal Party can't be Labor light. It has to stand for principles. And I got very significant support for that. Obviously, I'm disappointed not to have succeeded, but the Liberal Party future is bright if it changes. And I think this by-election here in the state of Victoria, in Melbourne's eastern suburbs, is an opportunity for that.
Look, I think Nicole Werner is a good person. I launched her campaign last year for the state run in November, so no issues with her. But compare her to you, and there's just daylight between them. And Nick Cater, my issue here is the factional warlords all get together to keep out someone like Roskam, and not because he's hopeless, but because he's too good, and they don't want competition in the Liberal Party room in Spring Street.
Well, I just don't know how they think they can leave out somebody who puts their hand up like John Roskam with his experience. I mean, they must be so chock-a-block with talent there, Peter, that they can afford to leave a man out like that. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, I agree. I think Nicole Werner, from everything I see, would make a good candidate. But I think when you've got an experienced person with a good, strong understanding of Liberal principles and how to take them forward, like John Roskam, it just puzzles me, frankly, that they wouldn't just vote him in unanimously.
Got to say, so chock-a-block of talent, you know, they've been in opposition for nearly 30 years, but what would we know about politics?